So for this video, I am going to be honest with these thoughts that I've been having for the past few months about the Indigenous American community. Now, before I get into that, I will start off with this. For the past couple of weeks, I have been receiving messages of all about change and going with the flow of things and improvising and pivoting, and how not everything is going to go your way. So it's best to work around certain situations, right? And for an example, last week, me and my boyfriend had went down to North Carolina because my tribe, which I am a part of, the Skidore Wakan Tuscarora tribe, um, we were supposed to have a harvest gathering. And due to the weather, it had to be canceled. So the whole trip, I was improvising on certain things, like certain plans that I had was canceled. So I'm like, okay, what am I going to do now? And me and my boyfriend, we end up going on like a ghost tour, like ghost. It wasn't like a ghost hunt, but it was like a ghost tour around Wilmington. And this person was explaining all about the history and the ghosts that still haunt that area, even like certain Native Americans and so on and so forth. And I end up having a good time. Actually, this trip ended up being one of the best trips I've ever been on due to how much I had to improvise and accept that this is the reality right now. I can either mope and whine or just go with the change and pivot. So, and there was more and more examples that I have about receiving messages of change. But this video will be really long if I start going into every detail of how the universe was sending me messages. But saying all that, I will say this about the Indigenous American community. I feel like if certain now, I don't speak to everybody in the Indigenous American community. I don't know everybody. But from what I've noticed, if the Indigenous American community keeps going down a certain route, I do feel that the culture will be lost within, I'll say, less than 100 years. Now, why I say less than 100 years is because the generation, so I'm a millennial. Not every millennial is engaged with the Indigenous American community. Therefore, a lot of millennials don't know certain languages, don't know the customs, don't know the history, don't even know that they're Indigenous American. Or if they do know that they're Indigenous American, is because their grandmother or whoever told them that they're Indian and that's it. As far as everything else, like, there's no engagement in the Indigenous American community. Um, and the generation below me, which is what, Gen Z, they don't know too much either. So therefore, due to that, less than 100 years, I do feel like the history, the culture, the customs, everything could be lost. And I feel this way because it is true, the younger generation is not really all that interested. And it's not that they're not interested, because the younger generation can be very, like, they're very influenced by the things that the adults are doing, if that makes sense. They can be very easily influenced. So it's not that they're not interested, it's just that the way that the older generation is moving, they're not giving anything for the young generation to, like, grab onto and carry the torch, if this is all making sense. For instance, it's just the way that, like I said, I don't know everybody in the Indigenous American community, but I have seen this. I have noticed that there are certain individuals that are, how should I put this? It's like there's certain gatekeepers in the community. And not to not to make them seem like they're hogging the culture or they don't want nobody to know. Um, they do have their side of the story as to why they're not so open. Some of it has to do with you have people on the outside, they're so desperate to get in that they'll take somebody else's genealogy and pretend that these are their people when they're not. Like, for instance, somebody could come in and claim my grandparents and so on and so forth when they're not even actually in my family. It's just that they're too lazy or they're having a hard time trying to find their indigenous relatives, that they'll just be like, they're clinging on to somebody else's family. So that's like, that's fraud. So you have that going on. Um, Another thing that plays a part is colorism on both ends of the spectrum. You have dark skins that don't like light skinned people in like the tribe and all that stuff. And they call light skinned Indians like myself, like uppity Indians and all that stuff. And then due to the past history of nobody believing that dark skins can be indigenous, you have some tribes that won't allow certain individuals in because they don't look the part. So therefore they won't be taken seriously. So you have all of this stuff going on. And due to all that, it's just like we're not going to get ahead as a group, especially if nothing is getting passed down. And another thing that is going to hold us back is the mindset. Like certain things that I've noticed, it just doesn't make sense at all. Like, I feel like the Indigenous American community can be easily swayed by certain things. Like this whole thing, there's no such thing as illegals on stolen land. I don't know why certain Indigenous Americans want open borders. When you're fighting for land back, how are you going to get your land back if there's open borders? There is no nation when you have open borders. So anybody could come in and take what you have. And not everybody is coming in feeling like, lovey-dovey and sunshine and rainbows and we're all in this together. No, there are people coming in with bad intentions. So I definitely disagree with the whole open borders and there's no such thing as illegals on stolen land. Like, I disagree with that. So that's another thing. And there's something else I want to say about that too. Another thing that I wanted to say about that is this. Speaking of getting land back. Now, say like we do get land back. What are we going to do? I feel like certain individuals in this community don't think 10 steps ahead of things. In the Indigenous American community, the bad guy is usually the white man because of the colonizers and all that stuff. Um, there are more people here than just the white man. Like, look around. It's not just us living here. It's not just the white man living here. There are other groups living here. So what I'm saying is, if we get our land back or win, whatever, what are we going to do? Because it's not just the white man that will fight back or whatever. There's other groups who live here and they've been here for a few generations or just got here, whatever. They're not going to get up and go back to wherever they came from. So, stuff like that is like, okay, getting the land back is one thing, but what are we going to do once we get it back? It's not like I disagree with it, but it's just certain things just it's not clicking because there are a lot of people here who made this place a home. So what are you going to do with everyone that's already here? On top of that, we don't even have a military. So it's just, I just feel like nobody's thinking 10 steps ahead. Um, I don't think it's wise to just outright get land back without thinking of certain things. Like, one, there's millions of people who live out here. They're not going to just up and give their property back. Um, and then two is like, we don't have a military. So, like, it's just, now what would happen if we got all this back? On top of that, you have other places like China that wants to take over. Are we equipped to handle that as an indigenous nation? No, I don't think so. So you have certain things like that. And then on top of that, you got to have money to do certain things. Not everybody in this indigenous American community got it like that to start funding certain things. So I feel like there's other ways around things, but not this way. Not this way. It's not only is it too direct, but it's not going to work. We should be able to get land just like everybody else. You got other groups that come out here and buy land. Why can't we have our land back? But it has to be done in a certain way. To me, I feel like buy land, have money, you know, so you can be able to do certain things, like have certain systems in place, like our own schools and so on and so forth. But just that direct fighting for land, on top of that, you want open borders. It's like, I don't think anybody's thinking straight. One more thing too before I get out of here, which I feel like this will make more sense. So while I was down in North Carolina with my boyfriend, we had stopped at this like coat shop, and this shop had like a bunch of crystals and tarot cards and blah blah blah. And there was this one tarot deck that just kept calling my name, and it happened to be an indigenous tarot deck with wisdom coming from like the elders and whatnot. And usually, even though I am a part of the indigenous American community, got the ancestry and all that stuff, I do not pick up everything that is indigenous American. Like, just because I see something with feathers on it and dream catchers, that's not going to sway me to like pick something up and buy it. It has to call me. So there were multiple like Native American decks that I saw that I didn't pick up. This deck I did happen to pick up, and I usually keep it on my ancestral altar now. It is called the Earth Warriors Oracle. So it's not a tarot deck, it's an oracle deck. Um where I'm going with this is that this deck is all about ancestral wisdom, and it talks about elders who saw things coming and they were able to work with the change. So they accepted change and they was able to work with it. So they accepted all the new systems. That was not that they wanted new systems to come into play. It was just that they saw what was happening and they was able to work with it to keep things going instead of having the culture and everything die out. This deck gives really like Pisces, Aquarius type of feel because it has like the spiritual aspect, and then the Aquarius like futuristic, like, type of feel. And that's what I've been getting at the past few weeks. It's all about pivoting, improvising. Okay, this is what's happening. How can I work with it? Or how can this help me in some type of way? Um, and I feel like because of what happened, it's like throughout the indigenous American history, for me, it's like shit happens. And this happens with all nations. People come, people conquer, blah, 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 blah. Matter of fact, history is so, the history that they taught us is not like, there's more to the story. So, but that's another topic for another time. But basically what I'm saying is what happened is like, instead of fighting to get the old way back, it's like, how can we move our group and our people forward without the history and the culture and all that being lost? Which I feel like it could happen if things don't start changing. I don't think shouting for land back and throwing up signs and all that stuff it's cute. It's cute, but it's not gonna work. Um, when you do other things, like when you start becoming a threat, that's how you know what you're doing is working. Um, I have more to say about that, but I'm gonna save it for another time. But yeah, that's how I feel. This culture could be lost within like less than 100 years if people don't start like really thinking about certain things. Yeah. One more thing that I forgot to mention that I feel this would be the reason why the Indigenous American community, the culture will be lost in less than 100 years. This is another reason why, and this is a major one. The reason why I feel like this culture will be lost in like less than 100 years is the fact that the Indigenous American community still moves in tribes. And even though the community is based on tribes, like you have the northern tribes, like the Lenape and all that, and then you have the southern tribes, and then you got like the Midwest and the West and all that. So different sections. Yes, I get it. And that is what makes the culture so unique because we have all these different customs and whatnot within Turtle Island. Um, which, you know, it's no problem with that. But the thing is that we move like we're not all in this together. Like, it makes no sense how I'm gonna just speak on the Eastern Woodland section of the Indigenous American community. Here's the thing: a lot of us are all mixed with several tribes. With me alone, with my family, I've learned that I'm not just also like I've been told Lenape, which I'm gonna get into that in my next video. Not just Lenape, but also the Tuscaroras down in North Carolina. But not only that, I have ancestry going back to like Virginia, like the Nansemond tribe, the Powhatan tribe. So my Indigenous American lineage comes from all these tribes. So with that being said, you would think that we would all move like in one unit because it's not just my family that has all these mixtures of different tribes. There's other people in the indigenous community that have all these tribes mixed in within their family. Like there's people in my tribe that are not just Tuscarora, they're also Powhatan and whatnot. And same thing with the Lenape. They're not just Lenape. They're also have mixture with the indigenous Americans down in Virginia. So with that being said, you would think that we would move like one unit, but everything is still separate. So with that being said, it's like we're not going to get further ahead if we keep moving separate, if that all makes sense. Because if we don't start at least merging together, like still keep our individual tribe uniqueness, but if we don't start like merging together and, you know, moving as one, we already conquered enough, but we'll be no match for like future things coming into play because of the fact that we move so separate.